Okay, I'll bring this meeting to order of the Senate Appropriations Committee, and we'll start out with roll call.
Senator Driscoll?
Here.
Senator French? Here. Senator Garou?
Excused?
Senator Larson is excused.
Excused.
Chairman Salazar?
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
So for members of the committee, I'll just be up front. We are going to go till 1:30, and then I will close the meeting. As you know, we have the presentation of the budget bill starting at 2, and I want to give committee members the ability to prep for that. First thing on the agenda is Senate File 14, literacy position for K-3 reading program. And who do we have here? Anyone to present it? Yes, sir. Good to see the Department of Education. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members, Dickie Shaner, Nate Tajeski with the Department of Education. Thank you for hearing this today. This is one of the state superintendent's top priorities this session around literacy. And what this bill does is it adds one full-time position to the Department of Ed with some supporting contractor funds to get outside expertise to help, to implement a statute that's already on the books, 213401, that is a pretty extensive early reading intervention statute that we've had in law for many years, but never have had a position to own it and be fully dedicated to it. So what's happened over time is that other employees in the agency with other jobs have had to take this on as an added responsibility. And of course, that means it doesn't get the attention it needs. And so what we did this session, through the interim, was work with the Joint Education Committee to get this position proposed so that we can really dedicate the time to early literacy that we need to. And the 900 series is based off of a similar model we use for school support in our state system of support. We have one full-time employee that works on that, and then she's able to use some of her 900 series to contract out with different experts to help her support school districts based on their needs. And so this will be a very similar model here. We took about half the budget that the system of support uses for 900 series and plugged that into this. So, Mr. Chairman, that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you drill down a little more for me, for my knowledge, exactly what they're trying to do in those younger grades through this full-time employee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you, Senator French, thank you. It was focused on early K-3 literacy instruction. And so the statute requires that these districts use some type of approved screening instrument to screen kids for reading difficulties. And then when they identify kids who have those difficulties on the screeners, they're to provide evidence-based interventions to those kids to help them get up to speed, help them navigate whatever reading difficulty they may have. A common one is dyslexia, but that's not all of them. And then also they're to administer these assessments to look at different parts of literacy and again, provide sort of those interventions for the kids to make sure they're learning all the components of phonics and things so that they can read by grade level. And then the districts are to report these reading plans to the Department of Ed, and the Department of Education also provides some training to elementary staff on best practices in literacy.
Here just in case.
Thank you, Chairman Salazar. Chairman Salazar and members of the committee, my name is Gay Wilson. I'm from Cheyenne, Wyoming, and I'm a retired teacher of 21 years. 10 of those years I spent as a reading specialist here in the school district here in Cheyenne. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of Senate File 14. A narrowly focused and practical investment is how I hope you will think of this, that will make a measurable difference in our schools by funding a full-time literacy position at the Department of Education and allowing the department to hire contracted specialists to help districts implement the reading and assessment intervention that is currently in place. And as you heard Chief Shaner testify to, they have recently hired one full-time person, but I know that her jobs are wide and she has a lot of responsibilities. And so we really need this position to help address the needs of all the districts across the state. And I come to you with direct experience. While working at the Wyoming Department of Education a few years ago on the CLSD grant that we were awarded, I partnered with 25 school districts across our state. I saw firsthand how much districts want to do the right work for their students and how often they are challenged by a lack of state capacity to help them do well. District leaders were consistently grateful for someone at the state level that could answer their questions and return calls in a timely manner. That responsiveness to them mattered. It changed implementation from guesswork into action and guidance. But that work also exposed a serious gap. Wyoming is the only state in the nation without a literacy department. The only state. Other states have literacy departments that have numerous people up into the 20s, but we have none. Because of that absence, my role, originally a part-time 20-hour job, quickly ballooned to 40, 50, or even 60 hours a week at times, trying to fulfill the duties of the grant and respond to the district needs. That is not sustainable, and it's not fair to our districts. And it is not the way to ensure consistent, high-quality implementation of our K-3 reading program. Senate File 14 fixes that problem. It creates a stable, accountable point of contact at the state level, and districts do appreciate having one or two people, at least, that they know who to contact. It offers a full-time professional whose job is to support districts, coordinate technical assistance, and ensure the law we pass is implemented with fidelity as well as equity to all districts and students. It also allows the department to hire contracted experts when districts need targeted, short-term support, such as literacy coaching, diagnostic specialists, or trainers who can work directly in classrooms and with school leaders. Let me be clear about what this investment, again, please think of it as an investment in our state and in our children, what it will do. It will provide timely expert support. Districts will have a single reliable state contact who understands the statute, the approved screeners and diagnostics, and the evidence-based practices that works, which means fewer delays, fewer missteps, and faster progress for students and teachers. It will level the playing field. Small and rural districts often lack the staff and support that larger school systems have. A state literacy position and contracting authority ensure each and every district, regardless of size or wealth, can access the same high-quality support. It will also protect local control while increasing capacity. This is not about the state taking over instruction. It is about giving districts the help that they need to implement the law that they're required to follow. It will also save money over time. Early effective intervention reduces the need for costly remediation later. It lowers special education referrals for preventative reading problems and improves graduation and workforce outcomes. Funding one position and targeted contracts is a modest upfront cost compared with the long-term financial benefits of stronger literacy. And I'm going to, if you will look real quickly at the sheet that I gave you, this is in support of the fact that if we don't do something now about getting districts more support from the state, here's what happens. So the Education Consumers Foundation is a nonprofit that is independent of other funding sources. It is an organization that is financially and otherwise independent of public education industry and its support groups. And they have come up with facts and figures that you can look at based on third grade reading scores. It also shows that taxpayers are subjected to what amounts to a hidden annual surtax, one that accumulates with each graduating class. It is levied in the form of added local, state, and federal tax-funded resources absorbed by the resulting school dropouts and unprepared graduation rates. If you look at this sheet that I gave you, if you look on the left-hand side, it shows you, this would just be an example from Natrona County. So if you had an enrollment, which they had, 999, and you looked at the students that were basic and below basic, which was 24.2 and 26%, then you come up with, on the right-hand side, it shows you the actual numbers. So projected dropout rate would be, or dropouts would be 81. Projected unprepared graduates, that would be 280. Some of those include students who cannot even read at grade level and are reading numerous grade levels below. So you would have 72% of the students who are not prepared to graduate. So what this does, it shows you the added tax absorbed by dropouts and unprepared graduates. You can look at each of the different types of areas that increase our taxes with healthcare, public safety, welfare, and education. The important part, if you'll flip to the back side, it will show you total cost to taxpayers, which this is over the lifetime of that class. So over the lifetime of that class, those students, percentage of students that were dropouts or unprepared graduates, amounts to a lifetime cost of over $16 million to that district. Now, I can, if you would like, I can also add up all of the districts across the state and present you with a number that would be astounding. So as I mentioned, this is an investment in our state, just this one position and the contracted consultants. I know some will worry about adding another state position or the cost. I understand that concern, but consider the alternative, continuing to ask districts to implement complex screening, diagnostic, and intervention systems without a state partner to help them do well. That approach produces inconsistent results, wastes local time and money, and leaves students behind. SF-14 is a lean targeted solution with one full-time position and the ability to contract for expertise. When I worked with districts with the grant, the difference between having state support and not having it made a huge, huge difference. District that received timely guidance and implemented screening and intervention with fidelity. And they learned how to interpret the results in order to adjust their instruction to move forward. So with that said, I would highly encourage you to look at this as a small investment for long-term gains in our state. Thank you, and I stand for questions.
So, first of all, I support the bill, and I think it's needed. I will say this, you know, my wife and I started reading to our child as a baby, and now he's 17, he goes through 2 to 3 books a week. And
Good
so it
for
does
you.
start in the home and making that reading enjoyable and fascinating. But yes, I agree with your statement.
Thank
Senator
you.
French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To follow up on that, what's the problem? I mean, are the parents not, like the chairman said, not getting involved early and reading to the kids? I mean, I did it with our children. Why is there a big problem? What's going on?
Chairman Salazar and Senator French, thank you for doing that with your children. And I commend you both for being able to do that. And, you know, I think most families do, but there are a lot of students out there, you know, preschool children, babies, you know, children in elementary school whose parents are either working shift work, both parents are working shift work, they have major socioeconomic challenges, so they don't always make the best decisions. Would it be nice, and would that be the ideal, that all parents sit and read with their children in the evening? You know, it sure would. I would agree, because it does start in the home.
Follow up?
Please.
I get pushed back a little bit on the I mean, I didn't have any money when we had the little babies, and we still read to them. We, you know, probably classed us as poor folk, you know, but we still had made time. You know, you can, you know, my favorite, I still like it, Where's Waldo? You know? Not a lot
Yep.
of words.
There's nothing wrong with picture books. So Chairman Salazar and Senator French, I don't disagree with you that even the lowest income parents, you can go to the library, you can find resources from the school. But I will just share a little story about a friend of mine who is very successful. She had a mother who was an alcoholic. So, and I also worked at I worked at the largest Title I elementary school in the state. I think its free and reduced lunch rate was around 70%. And I work with a variety of parents. I can tell you some of those parents were working at night. One of the mothers who I needed to get a hold of, it would be when I would go to try to call her, they had to call whichever hotel they thought she might be working at that night. And I'm not talking cleaning. So not all parents are created equal, unfortunately. The other reason that children are not, and we're running into these high numbers of students who are graduating that cannot read, is because teachers don't have the training that they need, which is why we're trying to, get the K-12 literacy bill through, because we need to start fixing that problem in our state. Teachers want the training, districts want the training, and they're not able to have it. And I'm going to, when I get finished, I'll let my friend and colleague here respond to that as well. But that's why Wyoming has got to change the way they teach reading in this state and the way they're funding reading. Thank you.
Welcome. You have any comments, thoughts?
I do. I'm Carrie Roden with the International Dyslexia Association Rocky Mountain Branch. We cover Wyoming, Colorado, and Utah. Also, at the first point with reading to your children, it is amazing that you took that on because that makes a huge difference. There's two main parts that come together for reading, and that is what you guys did, and that is that vocabulary. So you're getting that rich vocabulary from the text to your children. The other part is the ability to decode. I was an elementary teacher for 12 years. I taught kindergarten, 3rd and 5th. I had my master's in literacy. And then when my daughter was in kindergarten, and I read to her from the time I was pregnant, and I found out very early, but I read BFG, everything, every night to her. She's profoundly dyslexic, and I had no idea. I homeschooled her I pulled her out, because I'm like, I was a teacher. By that time, I was home raising my kids. I'm like, I could teach her. I had no idea what to do, because I'm a master's in literacy, and I did not know, and it turns out I wasn't trained. I wasn't trained how to teach kids to read. When I taught kindergarten, I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't trained in my college or my master's degree. So that takes about 10 to 20% of our population is dyslexic. I did not know that it ran on my side of the family. I have a hard time with word retrieval, but my father, who was an Air Force intelligence, had a hard time learning to read. My sister, who was Governor Gordon's press secretary at the beginning and Governor Geringer's press secretary, was in special education until 6th grade because she had dyslexia undiagnosed. My uncle struggled to read. So it is very, very common to have, even though you do everything right, to have a child that has that word reading difficulty. And also, we're also working at a Title I school. It is poverty from parents that never learned to read, never got the help in school because teachers, not teachers' fault, they weren't trained. And so it's that generational poverty that if you don't get your leg up in the world and learn how to decode words, it's not gonna happen naturally. And so that's the first part is that. And the second part is the teacher training. And we need someone that's educated at the state to help our teachers do what they need to do. And again, I was one of them. And Gay was one of them. We had no idea what we were doing. And we were highly educated. And the colleges of education, they're starting to kind of do the changes, but it's right now we have how many teachers in our state that don't have that training. And so that's why this would help with that, and to make sure that teachers are trained properly and that children are getting what they need, and that literacy is a right in our state and not a privilege.
So I was one of those 5th, 6th grade students who was a slow reader. And right after lunch, I was told to go with an instructor to a different room in front of the entire class, completely embarrassed. And then I would try and sneak back into the classroom so that no one could see that I was back. And I recovered, but Not everyone does.
Chairman Salazar, if I may reply, it's amazing the trauma that it causes on kids. They are reminded every second of every day that they think that they're less than, even though dyslexia or reading difficulties have absolutely nothing to do with intelligence. My daughter is one of the most profoundly dyslexic kids I've ever worked with, and I've worked with a lot, but she is so bright, and she wants to be a veterinarian one day, and she can because I fought to get her to learn to read. I had to hire attorneys in the district I was working in as a dyslexia specialist. So it's rampant throughout our entire state. It's not just Laramie County. We talk to tutors and teachers all over the state and parents we work with. It's across the nation. This is a movement. President Trump has acknowledged it across the state to make sure that our teachers are trained.
Any other questions? Thank you, ladies, for your testimony. Very much appreciated. Other public comment? Any other public comment? Do we have anyone online? Okay. Last time on this? Okay, I'll close public comment. Committee, what's your pleasure? I'll move the bill. Second. Moved and second. Any discussion, any amendments? Roll call.
Roll call vote for Senate File 14. Senator Driscoll. Aye. Senator French. Aye. Senator Garou.
Excused.
Senator Larson registered an aye vote. And Chairman Salazar.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, it's due pass. 4 ayes, 1 excuse.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Next item is Senate File 32, 9/11 funding. Come on up. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
good afternoon. My name is Nate Smolinski. I am the Chief Technology Officer over at WYDOT.
Yeah,
And
great.
also the statewide 911 coordinator.
Good.
So-
Good to have you here.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Good to have your director here.
Director Westby is here as well. Mr. Chairman, this bill is a product of some work that we did with the Joint Corporations Committee as well as with the telecom and communications industry. We started this process back in 2024, but really in 2025 during the interim, it was a topic that the Joint Corporations Committee carried through. We had been looking for quite some time about some of the funding shortfalls that wrap around 911 across the state, as well as some of the challenges that we're coming up with to look into migrating into next generation 911. So, Mr. Chairman, what we started looking at was a couple of different solutions, but what we found as we kept working and kept looking deeper and deeper, we found more questions than answers at times. So working with the committee and Chairman Case, we actually decided that we should probably step back and do a study and take a look at this the state of 911 in Wyoming right now, and then also what the path might look like to migrate towards next generation 911. So part of what we want to include in the study is going to be just a few topics. One of the key ones that we're going to look at is going to be funding. What type of funding models might work best for here in Wyoming? We also want to take a look at the expenses, but then one of the items that also came up is efficiencies. We currently have 33 PSAPs, public safety answering points, across Wyoming, and we don't really know if that's the correct number or not. And then also there's some other efficiencies that can be had when we talk about technologies. How can we bring some of these things together, which can result in a cost reduction, cost savings? The overall operations, what type of system might work best for what we have here? Based upon our population, the rural environment, what is going to work and be most effective for our citizens? And then also the governance of the system. How's this thing going to be maintained? Who's really going to be operating it? Who's going to have some management? Who's going to be really defining some of the roles that are going to exist when we talk about locals and we talk about where a state might fall into play as well? That's one aspect to the bill. The other one came through an amendment, and that was basically to establish a grant program that would provide $3 million of back funding for the local PSAPs currently that are operating at a deficit. We're able to take a look over 5 years plus worth of reporting that comes from the 911 revenues, which is basically done off fees that come off of your phone bills, and then the expenditures that are happening at the local PSAP level. If we project that across several years, what we found is on average, it's roughly about $3 million short if you combine all the counties and all the PSAPs. So that amendment has basically directed YDOT to stand up a grant program to look at backfilling the deficit only. And I want to be very clear that it's not necessarily to take those dollars to move towards a next generation 911 system. We need the data from the study in order to be able to effectively move and have that discussion about what next generation 911 is going to look like in Wyoming. So again, that $3 million is strictly for deficit gap funding is how I'm kind of referring to it. Mr. Chairman, so we're looking at $3.75 million, $750,000 goes towards the study, $3 million for the actual grant program. And there's language into the bill about this will be effective immediately, as well as any unused funds, non-appropriated, unexpended, they will be diverted back. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll be happy to stand for any questions.
Questions, Senator French?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, back in the day when I was county commissioner, we dealt with this very thing. And back then, I know I'm going back a few years, but there was a landline. Everything was landlines, right? And so you had a captive audience you could charge, I think it was 50 cents a month per your landline. Then the legislature bumped that, I believe, to 75 cents a month, something like that. And man, you talk about blowback from the public when we decided to go to the higher amount to keep a 911 efficient. Well, okay, that went away quite rapidly when the cell phones come in to the world. Where we had trouble was maybe, and I was, you couldn't really tell. I mean, they might have a Southern California number and not 307, you know, and we couldn't determine who was a local resident. So we could charge the 75 cents. So our fund started to go down because we had no way of, you know, people moving in and out or got their phone when they were in some other state, a number of things. So we really struggled with that. And then we went to we called it, tried to go to the enhanced 911 to triangulate where they're at, you know? So are you saying some of the counties didn't charge enough so their 911 fund is down? Is that why the 3 million's out there to help them?
Mr. Chairman, Senator French, what we're finding is all the counties are currently charging the ceiling, which is 75 cents per line, and that's per line. So let's just say, Senator French, maybe you have a cell phone, maybe you have a modem, maybe you have a landline, you're paying 75 cents per device per month. What we're finding is that fee has not kept up with inflation, and that is really the sole means that the locals have to fund their 911 systems.
Right.
So that deficit that's coming through, what we're finding out now is the locals are using their own general funds to basically build back up that account so they're able to maintain their operations. So what we're just seeing is technology, it doesn't come cheaper. It keeps going up, but these fees have basically stayed relevant, stagnant over the years. And the operation cost, as we can imagine, we're paying people more money, that's going up. So all these different expenses continue to rise, but the main base level for the funding mechanism, which may have worked years ago, is just being outpaced.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman. Well, can't there be, and I should hide my face saying this, legislation that the county commissioners may increase the rate up to $1 a month from the 75 to help counter that? Because it was 75 when we implemented it long time ago. And that might help, you know, that doesn't say the county commissioners have to do that to support their 911. They, you know, may do that. Then it's up to them, it's their decision.
Mr. Chairman, Senator French, that's one of the discussions that we did have with the committee. as well as we had it alongside with the communications industry also. Part of that discussion was, as you just stated, does that ceiling get raised, but put the power back to the county commissioners where they can make that decision? I think the general feeling is we don't necessarily feel there's a silver bullet that's going to solve the problem. Just by raising the fee, that's going to take care of all the needs. So part of what we want to take a look at with the study are some of our other neighboring states, how they're funding their 911 systems. Because what it could also be is you're going to have what I'm going to refer to as a one-time injection of funds required to migrate over to NG911, but then we always have the ongoing costs. How does that look and feel? And that's really where we want to be able to get some more data to see, are there other funding mechanisms that should be explored? You had stated earlier, when the fee got raised from 50 cents to 75 cents, there was a lot of backlash that was experienced there. So just imagine if we were to turn around and say, okay, we're going to raise the ceiling now to an inflationary rate, and don't quote me on this, I'm just going to throw a number out there. Let's just say, for instance, it's over $2. That's going to be impactful. And we don't know necessarily if that's the right way to go yet.
Yes, please.
I get where you're coming from, but that would be a local decision. The local county commissioners can make that decision. You know, if their constituents say, you know, they put it out there or whatever, public meeting, this is what we're thinking about. And if their citizens in their county says, no way, then that the commissioners can make that decision. Or maybe they say, yeah, we really want that 911 to, you know, if my buddy has a heart attack somewhere out there hunting or whatever, there's somebody that we can call and they'll come to our aid. So anyway.
Mr. Chairman, and I completely agree, that would be a local decision, but I also feel part of this discussion, let's just say for conversation's sake in that local area, as you just stated, Senator French, the no way discussion takes place. I think it would be prudent to have some options available and explore what some of those options might look like for the counties as well as for the state as a whole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Alan Thompson, the Executive Director of WASCOP, the Chiefs and Sheriffs Association. And we just would ask for your support in this funding mechanism to help us get to that point to better understand what the needs are going forward. We did talk about various different options throughout the summer interim, both in working groups with industry and within law enforcement and with our other emergency services partners. And it's one of those things that without learning more and collecting the data that isn't quite available right now, I think the funding associated with the bill that's concurrent to this, or the funding with this bill, gets us to that point in knowing what we need to do in a couple of years to provide good, solid 911 service across the state of Wyoming. And you know, help out those low populated areas and the ones that, you know, might have the better funding mechanisms through other means, and trying to figure out what that might be. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Shad Cooper. I'm with the Wyoming Fire Advisory Board. We had an opportunity to discuss this proposal in our December meeting and again in our January meeting with the Wyoming Fire Chiefs. There was strong support from the Wyoming Fire Service for this bill as proposed. It's really critically important to us that we're able to use the next-gen capabilities in the 911 system, to share our information with our PSAP centers, and to, you know, improve our ability to provide public protection. So we stand in strong support of this bill.
Good afternoon, Senators. At least I hope it is. Thad Hoff, I'm Albany County Commissioner. I'm also a member of the Public Safety Communications Commission that Mr. Smolinski oversees and advises. I'm going to speak on two things. I don't know that I want to fee our citizens any more than we have to. And in the Laramie environment, we have 10,000 extra students that may not be paying that fee. We also have 2 independent dispatch centers. And on game day, we end up seeing about 30,000 extra people in town that we do have to absorb into that system. Something that Mr. Smolinski didn't touch on is the different technologies that Wyoming has to implement now to accommodate these cell phones. The fiber optics and the cell phone inbound 911 calls aren't necessarily handled over a copper line anymore. So there's actually a second set of infrastructure that most of these dispatch locations have to service. So we're actually looking at more and more equipment. It's not a copper line coming into a building anymore that gets answered. It's a data stream that comes in, and there's a lot of infrastructure. So when the chief of police comes and says, we're going to have to split the cost on this server, and he's upwards of $500,000, we're sitting there. We don't know when it's going to go down. We don't know what needs to be in place, but it's imperative that we stay ahead of it. I know there's been a lot of talk of public trust in this building this week, and being able to dial 911 anywhere in the state of Wyoming, whether you're a citizen or a tourist, is overly important for life and safety. So with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Yeah, well, I'll push back a little bit on your comment that you don't want to make your citizens maybe pay more. Isn't this $3,750,000 part of my money too? And everybody else across the state trying, because maybe your citizens don't want to pay a little more, the rest of us in the state have to pick up the difference? Just a comment.
No. I do. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Nick Agopian, Wyoming County Commissioners Association. I think I might try and just identify 2 additional reasons in support of this legislation. As we're looking to, as Mr. Smolinski identified, that $3 million is a shortfall for the existing system. On the other side of a transition to the next gen 911 system, we will then be able to take the old system off. Unless we transition the whole state at once, counties will be left maintaining 2 systems at a much higher cost. And so as we look to do the backfill with the $3 million and move forward expeditiously with a study that identifies what is our current status, what's the current funding model, and what's the implications, looking at other states and how they do a variety of different funding models and bringing those together, we want to move quickly to transition. And in that transition, we believe that there are efficiencies to be gained. With the 32 PSAPs across 23 counties, there is certainly room for statewide coordination and a reduction in the purchase of hardware and the ongoing maintenance of these systems. And working with the 911 coordinator, working with WYDOT's CTO office has been very good. We've had great support all through the interim from the telecommunications industry, providing input, and they, as I understand and have testified before, stand ready to help offer some of that technical support as we move towards a study. And so with that, I would stand for any questions and ask for your favorable consideration.
Good morning, Chairman Salazar, Senator Driscoll, Senator French. I'm Mayor Schrader's from Buffalo. I have the unique challenge of being on both sides of a 911 system. I sit in City Hall and try to fund it. And I am also a certified EMT and a deputy coroner that relies heavily on 911. My number 1 priority when I got elected was the safety and security of my citizens, and I strongly urge you to do this because this study, this funding, not only helps my community, but helps communities across the state to fill in that gap, to make sure that the very first step in an emergency and a very heartfelt, scary situation gets fulfilled. And I think that falls on everybody's shoulders to make sure that all of our neighbors, I think it's the Wyoming way to take care of each other. So strongly urge your consideration for this.
Any discussion? Any amendments? Roll call.
Roll call vote for Senate File 32. Senator Driscoll? Senator French? Senator Guru? Senator Larson is registered an aye vote. And Chairman Salzar? Mr. Chairman, you have 4 ayes to pass, 1 excused.
Mr. Chairman, this is the latest edition in the ongoing effort to deal with the difficulties we're having with the EMS services. And frankly, those have been going on for at least half my tenure in the legislature. What's happening is we're having increasing difficulty paying for these services because they're increasingly more expensive. And the reason that they're more expensive is that with the ambulances, we're increasingly carrying more and more high-tech, life-saving equipment and better trained technicians to use that equipment. And the reason we're doing it is that experience is showing that that saves lives, and not on a small scale. Mr. Chairman, what this bill does is change the reimbursement, and I will say that a lot of the costs of running an ambulance system are now fixed. The testimony in committee was that it now costs $500,000 a year fixed cost to run an ambulance, and that keeps going up. What this bill does is deal with the Medicaid payments for the ambulance runs that Medicaid is responsible for. Right now, the testimony we had in committee on a 911 call, the average that Medicaid pays is $349 a call. Medicare, which is a larger market share, pays $576. And if you're private pay, it's $950. Typical structure that you see with Medicaid reimbursement being lowballed well below cost. What this bill does is proposes to bring the Medicaid payment up to the same as the Medicare payment. Now, the Medicare payment probably doesn't reflect actual cost either. Probably still lowballed, given our experience with Medicare elsewhere. But it is a considerable improvement, and it will help the difficulties we're having across the state. It won't solve them all, but it will help. And one of the reasons for doing it is that if you do it with Medicaid, that half of that cost is paid by the federal government through the Medicaid program. What's going on now is the private pay is subsidizing the other two. And we're reducing the amount of that subsidy and paying more share on the public ones, which are under Medicaid. And a good reason for doing that is instead of it being done all with state or county general funds, it's being done half with federal funds. It will not, in my judgment, solve the problem, but it'll be a significant help. And the expectation is, and you can see it in the appropriation, that this is going to increase the costs by 2.6 million a biennium, of which half will be state general fund and half will be federal fund. I suspect in the future, near future, we'll be back again saying we've got to cover the fixed costs in a better way, and we're going to have to find a different mechanism for that. But this is a stopgap and an obvious first step to take because half the funding is federal. I believe currently EMS and the ambulance services cover all the parts of the state that are accessible to such services. You know, obviously some of your wilderness areas are not, but we've had a number of ongoing crises where that coverage, that universal coverage has been threatened. It's been partly dealt with by consolidating, sometimes I think mostly involuntarily, but consolidating the number of the EMS services across the state. But the fundamentals are that the costs are going up and we ain't paying them.
So take, for example, my community of Du Bois, which is relatively isolated. How would this help?
If this, by raising what they were getting, the income that they were getting from each call, that was Medicaid. Now, remember, this is strictly on the Medicaid side. So somebody that is, say, a pregnant mother with an emergency, that'd be a typical Medicaid patient. It will help there. But it doesn't help with the rest of the universe that is either private pay or Medicare pay. But it at least gets Wyoming to doing more of a fair share of the costs that are being incurred by our program, going away from the typical Medicaid is the worst payer out there to we're at least as good as Medicare. I don't think Medicare pays adequate attention to costs and is full cost, but it's an improvement and it helps the ambulance service by increasing their income. We'll be back 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, we'll be back. I don't guarantee when, but friends may have a better idea, but we will be back because the costs are continuing to escalate and the benefits, you know, there's real life-saving benefits in this cost escalation. But I think sooner or later, we're going to have some crises where either we pony up a good deal more money or some major highway areas in the state are going to be without services. We've had too many near misses already.
Good afternoon, Chairman Salazar, members of Senate Appropriations. My name is Franz Fuchs, Deputy Director at the Department of Health, joined by Jesse Springer, our state Medicaid agent. Bill is pretty simple, just here to answer any, I'm here to answer any general EMS type questions, and Jesse's here for the Medicaid piece of things, so.
Roll call vote for Senate File 4. Senator Driscoll. Senator French. Senator Guru. Senator Larson, registered an aye vote, and Chairman Salazar. Mr. Chairman, you have a due pass 4 ayes, 1 excused.